Welcome back to another episode of RecNation. In this episode, we're going to continue to work on the track sled. We left off with the motor mounted. This episode, we're going to try to get this into a runner. We got to get the carburetor mounted, get the wiring all hooked up, get the gas tank mounted, get the electronics all on, and see if we can get this thing started. All right, so the gas tank will mount somewhere in here. The carburetor runs over here. With the gas tank in here, one of the first things I want to do is get the speedometer hooked up. This is the original speedometer cable. Now, since the dash has been moved back here, it don't quite reach. I found this extension on JEG's website. Unfortunately, if you look at the size of the ends, they don't line up and they won't screw together. And this end is too big to fit on the actual speedometer. These two ends will lock together and go together like that. So the plan here is I'm going to very carefully cut through here where this is crimped on so I can take this end off. Do the same on here, very carefully cut through where it's crimped, expand it, pull this end off so you can switch end for end. This end will end up on here, this will end up on that end. Then we can screw these two together and that extension will reach here. So I have the speedometer extension in the vise. Very carefully, I don't want to crimp this here. We're going to try to take and cut through that without damaging the cable underneath. Now I should be able to very carefully pry this apart and it'll come off of there. So we have the other end off the old one, and we should be able to slide that back on there. And we'll try to tap that back on, slap this back on there, and then we're going to crimp that back down. And she's solid. Now, we do the same on the other end. Okay, now you can see that's done. Cable's hooked here to the back of the speedometer. It runs down through. This is where we switched out the connection. And it runs all the way back down to the drive where the stock position was. Next we'll start working on the wiring. This does come somewhat pre-wired. This one here is a shift indicator. These are actually coming off the stator for the trigger, and this will run to the solenoid. So again, this is a 125cc 4-stroke engine. It makes about 7.8 horsepower and 6.5 foot-pounds of torque. Come over here. And it goes through here as an output shaft. And you can see on here the marking, it is 3 forward speeds plus a reverse. And this, of course, is the starter for the electric start. So we're going to try to use as much of these as we can for the original controls. I did get the key switch loosened up and the light switch loosened up. The choke cable is still pretty stuck. I'll keep working on that, but throttle cable's loose. Brake cable, it moves, but it's still kind of sticky. This is a high beam, low beam, that is still frozen up. I can't get that undone. And the kill switch actually does go in and out. I'm not sure if it'll work, but we'll try that. Okay, so this is an engine kit that came from Amazon. It came with pretty much everything you need. It gives you the intake for the carburetor to mount on there. It also comes with the carburetor here that goes on the manifold. This is the cover that fits over the sprocket. Comes with a shifter. We're not going to use that. Here's the actual stator. Comes with a foam type air cleaner, and it comes with everything you need for the wiring. So this looks like a rectifier. Here we have our CDI box. Here's the coil with a spark plug wire attached. Comes with the wiring harness. Here is the starter solenoid. Comes with the handlebar controls for engine start stop, engine start, and the headlight on off, low beams. So if nothing else, we can always hook this up and use that here if I can't get the original controls to work. And then it does come with a key switch. Again, if we can't get the original to work, we always got a backup key switch here. So that's a lot of parts to get started on, but let's get working on getting it wired up. So it does come with everything you need to mount the carburetor, so we'll get started on the carburetor mount. Okay, so you can see we got the carburetor on here. Started working on some of the wiring. I'll bring you guys around so you can see what it looks like over here. Okay, so you can see on this side, it's a spaghetti diagram basically. You can see we worked on before. There is the speedometer cable. I got the coil mounted here. Wire runs out to the spark plug. Here, this is the voltage regulator. Here's the, get the wires out of the way. There's the starter solenoid. It runs down. Here is the CDI box. It was kind of plug and play a little bit. There's a couple wires that didn't line up. What I ended up having to do is, this is hooked to nothing, but inside there what you can do is actually stick a small screwdriver in there, pull the wire out, and you can change them out in there. And what I ended up having to do, this is actually the start button here. If you look on the inside, on the very bottom, it's blue and brown are those two start colors. Well, they didn't have it wired up correctly. It was running back down through here, and you can see that I got it figured out where they have to go. So this is the wire that I had to change right here, is this yellow and red one that runs back and goes to the solenoid here. Okay, and then I was able to get it to turn over, use a little starting fluid, and got it to start up a little bit. So we'll show what that sounds like. Okay, so just for testing, I have it running to a jump box here. Here's the jump box, just to give it power. I do have a battery that we're going to hook up later. I just wanted to make sure everything worked right first. So we can do that. And we're going to put just a smidge of ether in there. And if we jump this, there you go. So she does run. It does sound weird because there's no exhaust on it yet. We'll finish, we'll get this wiring all cleaned up, and we'll try to get a gas tank mounted on there and run a gas line to here so it can actually run off of fuel instead of just starter fluid. So I worked a little bit late last night, doing a lot of little tedious things. You can see got the gas tank mounted. I made 2 little mounts for the gas tank. It's on there pretty good. That's all set to go. I'm a little worried that the height of the gas tank here is not, you can see here's the bottom and here's the carb. This is a gravity system where the gas should flow downhill to the carb. It's going to be borderline if that flows well or not. I may end up having to put some kind of like vacuum fuel pump on it. We'll see how it goes. The other thing I worked on was I tore apart the old brake cable that was up here, took that off. The throttle cable that was on here wasn't long enough to reach the carburetor. The brake cable was. And that was actually a lot of work. I've never worked on one of these before. It's kind of a weird system in there. So we had to pull this throttle block all apart, rerun the cable through, hooked it up to the throttle lever, ran it through, and got it to work to pull the slide in the carburetor. One thing I left to figure out is how to connect the two here. I think I may end up actually bending this down a little bit and trying to thread that so that this can screw inside and hold itself in place, because right now it kind of is loose. It can pull itself on. It does work as a throttle, but right here the cable is dragging on the edge, which could eventually wear through the cable, which would not be good. All right, next up, we'll throw the exhaust on and give her a little bit of a run. All right, I put the exhaust on. We're just gonna give it a quick test run, try to start her up here and see what happens. There's reverse. Low gear. There's neutral. She's a runner. Okay, so we got the wiring cleaned up pretty good. Let's see, this is what comes out of the stator. Replace those connectors. These are a lot more stable. We showed you before. There's your coil. This is the voltage regulator. I had to actually already replace the starter solenoid. Here's the battery. Place to put a better fuse in the battery here than what was there. And I'll show you from the other side. All right, this is from the other side. We got a little bit of work left to do over here cleaning this up, but you can see we put in a bus bar here for all of our negatives, and we put in a fuse block here. I can see that in there. Get everything tidied up, but we do have the key switch working. I'm going to wire it in a 12-volt outlet, and the dash lights work. And if I hit the button, she turns over. All right, thanks for watching this week's episode. We're getting real close here. We have a good runner. The wiring is almost done. I got a few things left to do with the kill switch. Then we'll have some headlights and taillights that got to get wired up when we get to that point. But hopefully you like what you see this week. Again, we're getting kind of excited. It's getting close. We can finish up that drivetrain and we're ready to take it out for a test spin. If you like what you see, like and subscribe to the channel. We'll keep going on this project. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.